Welcome to episode 248 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Mirror edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, owner of a new used Kia Optima. After a Black Friday purchase, that was my spending on Black Friday. And I'm here with the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and chef extraordinaire of collards based on his Thanksgiving meal he had with family. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, man?
Yeah, doing great, man. Had a great Thanksgiving, of course, with family, and definitely helped cook throughout the day there. Glad to have done that and spent some time with family and all that. But of course, back for another week of racing, which there isn't very much left of for 2024, of course, and still got a little bit of F1 to talk about, but lots of other stuff going on in other sports as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight is how bad our actual football teams are. I mean, the Niners humiliating themselves on national TV 2 weeks in a row, and then letting basically Josh Allen get multiple highlights towards a possible MVP, amongst the numerous things they did wrong on Sunday Night Football. One of the worst losses in the Shanahan-Lynch regime, honestly, but it kind of fits a pattern. We'll get into that with the 49ers. I know the Jags have been scuffling for a while, and they don't know who's going to be the coach. It sounds like Belichick might be in play, but who knows who else is in play. Josh, of course, will let you know on that. We'll talk about Qatar, which saw Fish Lips win after winning the championship the week before. Lando Norris with the assist by going and speeding through double yellow flags to the point of getting a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. The same stewarding room that took 4 laps to make a decision on throwing a full safety car when there was a wing mirror on the racetrack that Valtteri Bottas demolished, and then had both Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton run over that mirror, cut tires, and basically fuck their race up. So there was that. Different silly season news coming out of Qatar and leading into the season finale in Abu Dhabi. We'll get into that. Couple of NASCAR points, driver moves, and then also the lawsuit for 2311 and Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR, pseudo turn in the latest filings there. We'll talk about that. I mentioned the football roundup. We'll talk about F2 and F1 Academy. F1 Academy will be racing 3 times this weekend to finish their season. And then Formula E starts their 2024-25 campaign in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Formula One season ends in Abu Dhabi. We'll make our picks, preview the race, see who's going to win the Constructors' Championship. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and then we will call it a day. But first, Qatar Grand Prix. It was a race, plenty of action. I mean, it was a sprint. You had a sprint race on Saturday, which saw Lando Norris swap positions at the end of the race to Oscar Piastri. So Oscar Piastri was a repeat winner in the sprint at Qatar. George Russell finished third in that sprint, and Carlos Sainz was fourth. You had 4 drivers within 1.3 seconds of each other, so that's pretty interesting considering what ended up happening in the actual race. Charles Leclerc, 5th, Hamilton, Hulkenberg, Fishlips, Gasly, Magnussen, the top 10. Of course, the top 8 get points, so Fishlips was the last person to get points. Nobody fell out of the sprint. Sergio Perez finished dead last. In qualifying, Fishlips qualified on pole, but George Russell went to the stewards and said that he was impeded. That allowed George Russell to get the pole with a one-spot grid drop for Fish Lips. Fish Lips then told Woody that he would beat him off the start line and win the race, and he did. Though Lando Norris was coming back on Fish Lips during the race and probably could have had a battle. It would have been a battle, and then hopefully they would have taken each other off. That would have probably given Piastri or Ferrari a chance to win instead. But that would have been Leclerc. Piastri or Leclerc would have had a chance to win then. Yeah, I mean, we had the results. We'll get into it. Saw Fish Lips get the victory by just over 6 seconds on Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri was catching Leclerc, finished third. Woody Russell was fourth. Pierre Gasly, a top 5 finish, so big result for Alpine. Carlos Sainz, after the tire issues, was able to come all the way back to 6th. Fernando Alonso 7th. Zhou Guanyu, in his next to last Formula One race as a full-time driver, probably forever, gets an 8th place finish and gets Sauber points. Kevin Magnussen was 9th, and then Lando Norris, after the penalty mentioned earlier, finished 10th, got the fastest lap. Valtteri Bottas was taken off by Liam Lawson, or else he might have been in a position possibly to get a point, but Lando was so fast it really wasn't going to matter. Lewis Hamilton was 12th after being plumb last. Tsunoda lost into 2 Toro Rossos, and then Alex Albon was the last classified finisher. Ocon and Franco Colapinto crashed into each other at the start of the race. Stroll had, I think he had some sort of issue, and then he had a penalty, so then they parked it. He wanted to park, but then they made him come in, run another lap, and to do the stop or do the penalty, drive back out on the racetrack, and then park the car. Perez had the engine quit during one of the safety car periods, or engine quit, which caused a safety car, and then Nico Hulkenberg went into the sand and was beached. But we get into this. I mean, Max Verstappen, 4-time, with air quotes, world champion, went out for the first time in a while, and with an assist from Lando Norris, Josh, to go out and just control the race and get that victory. I mean, the Red Bull team has not really shown that kind of pace or that kind of ability for a while. This is going back early in the summer was the last time you could really say that Red Bull was up there. They really weren't up there most of the weekend until qualifying came around, and then Max put a lap together to put it on pole, and he was not very happy with George Russell. So people want to be mad that he won another race. You can thank Woody for that, because it's not like that douchebag needs any more motivation other than hating black people like he hates Lewis Hamilton. But it's like, then on top of it, he doesn't like people who I guess are snitches or like kind of whatever you want to call George Russell, because he's a pussy. And in the end, he gets the win because Lando Norris is too stupid to back off in a double yellow. I don't know how many years he's been in Formula One. You back off through the double yellow on the front straightaway, he probably has a chance to win the race because he had the fastest car on the racetrack. I guess we can go this one of two ways, Josh. I mean, we can talk about Fish Lips for what he is, or do we look at it from the yet another lost opportunity for Lando Norris and McLaren, that because of that and the loss of 8 spots from 18, and they lost in that one move, they went from possibly getting 19 points and they only got 2, so they lost 17 points probably in that one decision. And that's, I don't know how many points they've lost this year with either bad decision making, Lando not making great decisions on the track, on pit road, whatever. But people want to talk about how great he is. But I think that's pretty straightforward, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so at least. And I think for McLaren, I think, yeah, this was another lost opportunity because after the sprint, they had a 30-point lead in the constructors' standings over Ferrari, and now they leave after the Grand Prix. They leave with 21, and so with the penalty that Lando took during the race, that definitely hurt them there. Even though he was able to come back and finish in the points by one position, he had an opportunity to win multiple times throughout the race, and had an opportunity on a restart to be able to get past Verstappen there, but Verstappen, of course, outmuscled him into the first corner, and then later on with the double yellow, speeding in the pits, that's a big no-no there, and he wasn't able to capitalize on the opportunity to help McLaren there. So now McLaren goes into this last race, which if they win, which I mean it's certainly possible, but they still there's still some unknowns for them, and it's not completely straightforward. Although I do think that they still hold the leverage there in terms of winning the constructors title. So there's definitely a lot of things that they could have done differently in this race, but it's another example of Lando kind of making mistakes in one shape or another, where they had an opportunity to win or get a good finish, and they stepped on their own foot once again. So there could have been an opportunity for Piastri, like you said, to win as well, but I think Lando had the fastest car there. So yeah, just another missed opportunity for McLaren, and then of course Red Bull, even though they're no longer in contention for the Constructors' Championship. Of course, now Max Verstappen finally has a win, of course, after many months of not winning. But now that he's got the championship locked up, with the qualifying mishap, otherwise, was able to get out and lead the whole race and fend off Lando Norris during one opportunity where Lando got beside him and go on and win the race there. So still proves that they at least have pace in the Verstappen car. Of course, Sergio Perez, of course, his future is somewhat murky there at Red Bull, and we'll see what happens here after Abu Dhabi, what happens to him. But if it weren't for Verstappen, of course, Red Bull would have probably been out of contention for the constructors title a long time ago. But Verstappen, of course, still the guy there, and still the guy mostly in Formula One. But yeah, the McLaren team, they had a chance here to kind of lock it up, and there's still a window of opportunity for Ferrari.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to look at that also. I mean, you had Carlos Sainz, had tire issues, of course, because of the debris. And I mean, that's the other key point to this. How does it take 4 laps to call a full safety car for debris in an obvious spot where it can be an issue? Then, I mean, why Valtteri Bottas moved over there? Why didn't he just back off earlier on the straightaway? They knew that was out there. What did they think was going to happen when a Formula One car hits a stationary object? You'd know it's going to probably disintegrate. And I know that with the MBS has come out, and similar to some of the governments that seem to be coming up these days, he wants to get all the power and be able to dictate how things are legislated, be the single person making that determination after all of the amazing decisions he's made in the last few years. All the people that have been quitting, leaving, been fired by the FIA, and then you had the guy who's the new chief director or whatever you want to go, like race director for Formula One. He was the race director for all 3 races. And I'm like, I don't know what Charlie Whiting, if he was a strictly for Formula One in his heyday, the late Charlie Whiting, and with all the nonsense that's gone on with race direction over the last few years, I don't really understand why you have one guy dealing with all of that, because it's liable to miss some things or maybe not be fully focused. It also puts a point on the stewards, and who the hell were the stewards there that you're telling me you're all on, get every screen, you have every camera available that Formula One has, and nobody sees the debris there? Like, I mean, I know NASCAR has this problem, and they've had this problem for years.
Yeah, it's just like NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Formula One is owned by Liberty, and, we've gone through that whole thing, and they didn't want to get, antitrust and this, that, and the other for why all of a sudden Andretti Global's bid, which has just been rebadged as Cadillac Racing, is going to be in Formula One in 2026, when basically everything else is the same, except Michael Andretti is not the front person anymore. It's Dan Tauris and the Guggenheim Group guy or whatever. Like, it's the same kind of bullshit here. I know that Formula One, we've seen this all year, Josh, where Formula One is kind of like cutting their nose to spite their face, kind of doing stupid stuff, saying stupid things, doing things that are kind of hypocritical. I know that we have a kind of an identity problem with Formula One. They have now we have these younger drivers who really don't know how to handle the media very well. And then you have Lewis, who's a veteran and has been put through the ringer, and now has been on a trend of the last few years where it hasn't gone very well for him. So it's like, there's a lot going on here, but I went into the weeds, so I apologize. But, like, what are we doing when you're supposed to be the greatest form of motorsport and you're leaving debris on the racetrack for 4 laps? Really. You could have called a VSC and they have to slow down to 50%, 60% of their pacing. You could have had a safety truck out there, got somebody to run out there, pick the damn thing off, and it could have been done in a matter of 20 seconds. Instead, you went and manipulated the race. You just altered the entire race. And you fucked Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton over. Really Lewis, because Carlos was able to recover because his car wasn't a piece of garbage like Lewis's car was. What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to be like NASCAR? Are we trying to be the WWE? Is that what Formula One wants to get into? Or what's next? Are you going to fake shootings too? Like, what fake? What's the next thing? Max Verstappen's going to be James Bond. What kind of other bullshit can we come up with for Formula One? Where are we going with this?
I don't know. That's I like that. No, that's awesome. But maybe we'll just have Brad Pitt race in the points, with the Formula One film coming out. Maybe we can just have him as a 21st century, just to give them some practice for 2026. Once Cadillac F1 is on the grid, they can have an extra car just so that they understand what it's like to have more than 20 cars on the grid there, and the other, because I think it's a 2-car effort or with the Apple F1. So yeah, let's get Brad Pitt on the grid for the last race just to have a stunt there and everything. But no, to me it's just and I know this is more of like a kind of shrug shoulder, what can you do thing, but it's just the nature of the business that they make a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes, and yes, we hold them to a higher regard than other motorsports, but it just goes to show that they make mistakes in F1. They make mistakes in NASCAR. They've made mistakes in IndyCar. We've seen it in IMSA as well, and countless other racing series. And, for as high and mighty as Formula One wants to project itself to be, they aren't as high as mighty as what they think they are. So that's kind of my response to that. But yeah, they should do better, just as, we asked NASCAR, IndyCar to do better in what they do. So yeah, they've just got to, be competent, I think, and, call the safety car or the virtual safety car when necessary and clean up the debris off the track. And, we saw multiple cars like Lewis and Carlos Sainz have tire issues there. And they got to respond to that, very quickly and, go through the procedure for that. But the series, I mean, to me, it's also, you talk about manipulation. I mean, we are in the sports gambling era here in America. And I mean, I know that's maybe some of the influence, but I'm sure in other countries, they've had issues with sports gambling for many years. And now that, the United States is all in on it, can't help but think there's some thought there, especially with Liberty Media, being an American company and, having a lot of, American influence, with Netflix and whatnot, maybe trying to create some fake drama there for the Netflix stock since, the title's all wrapped up with, a couple of races to go there. So to make up for the lack of dramatics in the title battle, maybe that's what they'll play with here, and everything with Lewis or with Lando and Max there, not having a very dramatic title battle. So yeah, I mean, this is something that they need to improve on, and I guess we'll see next year if they can improve on officiating or regulating the races here, and we have more competence in not just F1, but also the other series that we talk about here, and hope that they can put something on that's worthy of what they claim to be.
Yeah, and when you also consider the fact that Liberty Media is trying to get MotoGP, and so you're trying to get the most you're trying to get Grand Prix cars, you're trying to do Grand Prix motorcycles, two of the elite categories in motorsport. You need to be consistent, and you need to have credibility. And once you lose credibility, once you don't have consistency, you just have a fundamental problem. And I don't like the way F1 has gone in the last few years with many things. I still watch because, granted, I love racing, and I've loved racing since I was a little kid. So I'm not going to stop watching in that sense. But I don't have to sit there and be pleased or enthused by some of the stuff that I see on a regular basis. But, in the grand scheme of things, we'll see what happens this coming weekend at Abu Dhabi to finish the season and move on to 2025. The points right now, of course, we know who's won. He's got an 80-point lead. Lando has only got an 8-point lead on Charles Leclerc for second in points, so that's intriguing. Oscar Piastri's got a 19-point lead on Carlos Sainz for fourth. Woody Russell, 24 points, so he's going to finish out of Lewis again. Sergio Perez going to be locked in 8th. Alonso locked in 9th. The battle for 10th in points is actually interesting. Nico Hülkenberg a point ahead of Gasly and 7 ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. And you got Stroll also. I mean, he won't do anything. It doesn't matter. He's not going to finish that high. 13 points back. So that's the drivers' side. Also, Valtteri Bottas does not have a point this year still. I mean, his teammate Zhou Guanyu scored 4 points with a 8th place finish on Sunday. But Valtteri Bottas has a better best finish of the season than Logan Sargent So he has finally moved up to 22nd in points. So congrats to Valtteri in that accomplishment. The constructors standings, 21 points, as Josh mentioned, between McLaren and Ferrari. So very interesting how that'll be. Of course, there's the inter-driver battles for points positions on the driver's side. So something to definitely look at. Even if they maxed out points, no pun intended, Ferrari still would be able to finish at a Red Bull. So yeah, so then Red Bull is locked in third, Mercedes in fourth, Aston Martin in fifth. Alpine and Haas is a 5-point difference for sixth, and then the last three spots are more or less set there too. Because I don't see where Toro Rosso is going to be able to go out and do anything at Abu Dhabi. All right, so I mean, couple of news items from Formula One leading into the final race of the season. You had Esteban Ocon get essentially released or dropped, whichever way you want to go with it, so that they could allow Jack Doohan one race week prior to getting into it full time in 2025 with the team. So that'll be an opportunity for him, the son of the 5-time MotoGP world champion, Grand Prix motorcycle world champion, Mick Doohan. And then Ocon will test for Haas starting next Tuesday instead of waiting because he got released. And then you have the biggest piece, which is Sergio Perez's atrocious performance all year relative to fish lips has made the situation untenable for Red Bull, for One-Eyed Marco and Karen Horner, to the point that even though they're not saying it, it's pretty obvious that after Sunday's race in Abu Dhabi, that'll be the last race for Sergio Perez, at least in a Red Bull car. So I mean, they've been talking about it in the press, and I mean, obviously you have Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, both of them being part of the RB, Red Bull, whatever, Toro Rosso team, also part of their driver development. You have Isaac Hadjar, who's a F2 guy. You have various other Red Bull characters here and there. Lawson, of course, was in Super Formula before coming back to work in Formula One. Yuki's been with the Toro Rosso team for a few years under the AlphaTauri guys, and made some progress, but the car has not been good in recent weeks. And then there was a thought or possibility with Franco Colapinto before he started turning into a rolling demo derby, because he brings a lot of money from Argentina, that there might have been a thought of Franco Colapinto joining the Red Bull family as a second driver, probably at the Toro Rosso team. But I mean, I think the way they want to do it, One-Eyed Marco and Karen Horner want to put Liam Lawson in the car, second Red Bull seat, which when you consider their recent track record, it makes sense. They're not going with a guy who has spent many years in the team. Whatever you want to think of his ability, potential, whatever, I think they're taking Lawson here in part because long-term there might be more viability with him. Also with Yuki Tsunoda, the Honda connection, so they won't be a Honda team after 2025. There's a possibility with the new Andretti effort that they might have Honda power units in 2026. I mean, it's either going to be Honda or Ferrari. Those are the only two options that are there. So the notion it can't be Audi, obviously, and they're Qatari owned now, partly. Slobber, Red Bull with Ford badged Red Bull powertrains will supply 2 teams, and then Mercedes already has 3-4 teams. They're going to be supplying, of course, their own factory effort. You'll have McLaren, Williams, and Alpine in 2026. So to me, it would have made sense to just give Yuki Tsunoda a year just to see, what happens. Give him a shot in the big team. He's done generally what is asked of him. Yes, he's aggressive. Yes, he's mouthy. But at least there's a little bit of flash. There's a little bit of pizzazz. There's a notion of like Takuma Sato to him. Liam Lawson is more polished, I would say. More of it's hard to say sure thing, but someone that is probably safer. Now, what does that mean in terms of what he's going to do next year? Is he going to be able to perform like his compatriot and I think his manager, Mark Webber? I guess that's what they're hoping, meaning he'll contend here and there, might get a race win, might get a pole. But for Red Bull, they won the World Drivers' Championship, and they had the best car for I don't know how many months this year. They're going to finish third in the Constructors' Championship, and if Mercedes didn't suck at life, there was some talk, especially during the summer, where it could have gotten really sideways, and Red Bull might have finished fourth in this Constructors' Championship. They're going to have a hard time next year with basically 3/4 of a season for McLaren contending again. You have Ferrari, who's going to have a new driver pairing, and a motivated, angry Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes, who knows what they're really going to be. You're going to have a rookie in one of those seats, in Andrea Kimi Antonelli. And then the midfield, of course, is condensing a little bit. They're not at that level of those top 4-ish teams. But, I guess the question, Josh, is Red Bull, which way would you go? Personally, I say give Yuki a shot. It's a 1-year deal. Once you're done with that, give Lawson a year in the Toro Rosso, and then he can move up in 26 with a new power unit, new fresh slate, and then you start the new driver combination that way. To me, I think that would make the most sense. That's just me, though. Or is there somebody else? Would Valtteri Bottas? Would there be some other driver that is on the sidelines right now? Or maybe a test and reserve driver that Red Bull can randomly just decide they want to go and put in one of their cars? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because, if you put in a guy like Valtteri Bottas, it's only going to be a 1-year deal, maybe 2 years at max. And so it's almost kind of like having another, I don't want to compare him to Sergio Perez, but it's basically in terms of like somebody with veteran experience who's kind of there to play second to max, right? And just help the team. I feel like that's kind of been Sergio Perez's role over the last couple of years. He's won a couple of races here and there, but that's basically, been what he's supposed to do, and he's done basically his job, although this year and a lot of last year left a lot on the table. So for Valtteri Bottas, that's kind of what is on the table for him, although I think maybe Valtteri has an opportunity with the Cadillac team in a few years where he could go there. But then you mentioned Liam Lawson, which I think you should just put him in the car, but maybe he needs time to grow and get adjusted more to the team and everything. So maybe he should just stay at the Toro Rosso car for next season and then put him in there. But then you have change year after year in the second car and everything, and that give him more time to have chemistry with Verstappen as they go into the new engine regulations there. So that's what I think. But yeah, your idea of putting Yuki Tsunoda there gives him an opportunity to finally be in the top Red Bull team for a season, and should he not stay there, it gives him an opportunity to raise his profile. And if there's an open seat in 2026 and he goes elsewhere, like Cadillac or any other team that's going to have an open seat in 26, there's an opportunity to be a teammate to Verstappen, but also push him. He's young enough and aggressive enough, like you said, where he could definitely push Verstappen in certain areas throughout the season. So there's an option there too. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. But yeah, I think maybe your idea of putting Tsunoda makes sense there. So and still there is the Honda connection as they transition from Honda to Ford in 2026. So there's still opportunity there. So we'll see what happens. But it's interesting with Sergio Perez leaving here. We thought in the middle of the year they extended him, and I think I have to say we were all shocked to see that he was extended. But now looks like he's actually on the way out. So a lot of flip flop between is he going to stay or is he going to go? And looks like now definitely for sure he's out at Red Bull next year.
And I mean, I think they had a chance during the summer break where they could have stopped the bleeding. They could have done what I'm saying and put Tsunoda in the car for a few races and given him, next year as well. Or, like what you're saying, Josh, go Liam Lawson. They could have done that too. And they could have fleshed that out. They, I guess, did not want to flirt with doing what they've done so many times before, which is putting a driver in too quickly, which would have been more like the Lawson thing, or taking a driver that has been there for a period of time, put them in the main team, they struggle, and then they are put in a position where they want to sack them and, try to derail another driver's career. Ricardo was a flip around on that. He did it to himself in a sense. Gasly has been all right, so I don't know what the long-term prognosis is for Gasly. As long as he's at Alpine, I don't know where that's going to really lead him. It's basically a lateral move now after leaving Toro Rosso. Now he's basically in a lateral team. The point about Valtteri Bottas, as you brought up, Josh, I think there's him and Sergio Perez. I think one of those guys is probably in play for one of those seats because of a veteran presence who's been in the game a long time. Bottas, at his peak, definitely is a better driver than Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez, though, has Carlos Slim as his backer. So, yes, Andretti is not hurting for money, or Cadillac Racing is not hurting for money based on the top two people that they're pushing out there. And then the fact you have GM as well. But you want a veteran presence, you want an America's team. So you have a South American and you have an American driver, which is most people think it's going to be Colton Herta, then that also is satisfied too. But a lot of people here in America, a lot of American Formula One fans are very keen on Valtteri Bottas. So, and he's one of the only ones that kind of has a personality in Formula One. So I think that would identify very well, but he's very professional in his manner when he's with the team too. So a lot of things going on there. And now with all the moves that are going on with Red Bull, I think that really starts the dominoes going for 2026 and who goes where, even with the fact that most of the main teams have their driver lineup set. I think 3 of the 4 top teams already have their driver lineup set for 2026. So it's really Red Bull with their one seat, and then after that, you kind of have some questions, but we'll see what happens with that. Couple of NASCAR, 2 or 3 NASCAR items. Keebler Gibbs, they didn't announce the crew chiefs. They had made the change for Denny Hamlin. Gabe Hart had moved to competition director Chris Gale, who was the crew chief of the 54, was moved over to work with Denny Hamlin, and then that left an opening. Tyler Allen, who has been in the Xfinity series or was going to be in the Xfinity series with Taylor Gray, instead will move up and work with Keebler Gibbs. And then Jason Ratcliffe, who has Xfinity championship in his time, has won with numerous drivers, won on the Cup and Xfinity level. He will come back and work with Taylor Gray in the Xfinity series. So, for Tyler Allen, he was a part of Kyle Busch's years at Gibbs, his championship years, because he worked with Adam Stevens, under Adam Stevens, who's well respected as one of the best crew chiefs in the game. So, the pressure is on, though, for him, because Gibbs has not won a race. So I think the expectations, obviously, going into next season are for a guy who has been a winner everywhere else to finally get over that hump and get that first win. Of course, there's a new nucleus at JGR. You have Chase Briscoe coming in from the outside. You're going to change crew chiefs on 2 of the 4 vehicles. So a lot of moving parts there, Josh. But the Tyler Allen move and then subsequent Jason Ratcliffe return, at least I think on the Xfinity side for Taylor Gray, it's a huge get having a veteran presence. So he's an aggressive driver, Taylor Gray. He needs to probably have someone back him down a bit. Ratcliffe is that kind of guy. Very, very cool, calm voice. And even though Taylor Gray did not win in the Truck Series, he was someone that had the capability of. And so now you put him in Gibbs equipment. He's going to be someone that has a chance to contend, make a playoff here in his first season. And then you never know once you get into the playoffs what can happen. But for Tyler Allen, I think the pressure is on him. He's in a big spot with the owner's grandson there in Keebler Gibbs. What are your expectations for him as he joins Ty Gibbs in the Cup Series?
Well, it's going to be interesting next year with Ty Gibbs. And you mentioned him, Ty Gibbs. He's been on the tour for a couple of years now, but he hasn't won yet, and the pressure is on. But I still think, there's still time for him, because it's taken a couple of years for some of the new rookies that have come to the sport in recent years, within the last decade, where it took them a few seasons to get adjusted to the sport and to start winning consistently. Chase Elliott didn't win the first couple of years. He had multiple opportunities the first couple of years for him to win, but didn't win. Kyle Larson, took him almost 3 years to win a race. Chase Briscoe, of course, took him over a year to win his first race. So there have been, multiple drivers here in the Cup Series who've been successful, whether it's at the Cup level or the Xfinity level, who took them a while to get into before they won races. So I think for Ty Gibbs, he's had opportunities last year where he was leading and had opportunities to win. So I think maybe the crew chief change will be that spark to get him to get in victory lane throughout next year. So it's just a matter of time, I think. And there's definitely lots of opportunities. They're good on the 1.5 miles. He's a good road course racer. There's always an opportunity at a super speedway or at a short track. So plenty of chances for him to win there next year. And then Jason Ratcliffe on the box for Taylor Gray and Xfinity. It's a great pairing there. He's, you talk about him being an aggressive driver, and Taylor Gray. Well, Jason Ratcliffe has been the crew chief for Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series and Joey Logano in the Cup Series. So 2 of the guys that have been very aggressive in the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. And now he's being paired with Taylor Gray. So that's a good pairing there, and should help tame the aggressiveness where he needs it, and help him go out there and win races throughout the season and be competitive in what should be a competitive season for the Xfinity Series. With you got a couple of guys coming in full time like Zilish and Carson Kvapil, so both those guys at JRM who are going to be competing for the Rookie of the Year and possibly for the championship, and you got Taylor Gray coming in full time, competing for the same deal. So it's going to be an interesting season, and I think that's the guy that you want as your crew chief, and Jason Ratcliffe.
You want somebody proven, a lot of youth coming into the Gibbs team, a lot of youth coming into the series, so you want to have somebody, a stable force there, and that's something that Ratcliffe brings to the table for sure. And then also a couple of Truck Series notes. Gio Ruggiero, who spent a lot of time in ARCA last couple of years, is going to go and take over Taylor Gray's ride in the Truck Series. So that's an opportunity for Gio Ruggiero, the son of Reggie Ruggiero, the legendary modified champion. And also you have Connor Mozak, who ran for multiple teams last year in both in trucks and Xfinity. Will move over to McAnally Hilgeman to take over what was the 43 truck, and that'll become the 81 in 2025. So that'll be interesting to see somebody who has shown talent and ability in TA2, also other forms of racing. So somebody who we will probably have to watch as the season goes on. There aren't that many announcements in terms of the Truck Series so far, so I think as the next couple of months go by, we'll kind of hear more stuff trickling down for these drivers and who will be going where. We still have 2.5 months before the season opener at Daytona, so we'll see what happens with all of that. So we'll move on to the NIFL. The week 13 of the NFL season this was an interesting one for sure. For you, Josh, became pretty straightforward in the sense that Aziz Al-Shahir went and tried to bring it back old school with the targeting hit on Trevor Lawrence and knocked him out of the game, caused a brawl. Would have been the most entertainment that's probably been at Everbank since, what is it called? His wrestling company went and had some sort of event there. But what the hell does he call his wrestling company? I'm like, oh, it's NXT, but then it's not NXT. AEW. He was going and having an AEW bit going on there. D'Amico Ryans denounced the hit, but it doesn't matter. Al-Shahir got suspended 3 games, but it doesn't take away from the final result for what took place. Unfortunately, for the Jags, it was a close game, one of the closer games for you guys. But in the end, even though CJ Stroud has taken a step back this year, they were able to come through, get that victory, much needed victory. Going and running it back through Thursday on Thanksgiving, the Lions held on with a 3-point win over the Bears. The Cowgirls somehow held on and beat the Giants in one of the crappiest games ever played. The Packers beat the Dolphins because the Dolphins can't play in the cold. Kermit the Frog fades, whatever. The golden, like Kevin Harvick talked about, the golden horseshoe up Jimmy Johnson's ass. That golden horseshoe has been transferred to Kermit the Frog because they're 11-1 and probably should be 7-4 at a minimum. The way that they've played this year. maybe 6-5 in some cases, but really like 7-4. If they were 7-4, I think I could, or 11-1, so then maybe 8-4. Yeah, I think 8-4 I could deal with, but not 11-1. So we'll see what happens with that. The Chargers defeat the Falcons. Shootout game between the Steelers and the Bengals. Steelers get the victory there. I mentioned the Texans, Jags. The Vikings last second win over the Cardinals. The Colts beat the Patriots by 1. Vikings won by 1 as well. Seahawks hold off the Jets, or come back on the Jets, which is pretty embarrassing. The Commanders destroy the Titans. Buccaneers come back to beat the Panthers. That was a good game. The Rams, in a tight battle, beat the Saints. The Ravens and Eagles were game of the week, or one of the games of the week. And the Eagles continue their run. They're only a game out of the number 1 seed, which is held by Detroit. And then Buffalo, which I'll mention a little bit, went and absolutely curb stomped the 49ers in the snow. Most of the guys that were on that 49er team should have been shoveling snow in the stands at Aramark Stadium, or whatever the fuck they call that, Ralph Wilson Stadium, instead of playing football for the 49ers, because most of them don't seem to know how to play football, let alone tackle, but I'll get into that later. The Broncos and the Browns, I think, tried to set college football records yesterday on Monday Night Football. Jameis Winston threw for nearly 500 yards. So I guess that game turned into a USFL game back in the 80s. Bo Nix looked like he was at Oregon again. Jerry Jeudy going and bringing it back to the old days. Crazy stats for those who had the opportunity to have Jameis Winston or Bo Nix. But I'm gonna open it up for you, Josh. You can say your piece on your franchise quarterback getting destroyed, like Stan Humphries used to get destroyed in the 90s, or Mark Brunell would have taken those kind of hits back in his heyday. But in this day and age of the NFL, that really isn't kosher anymore.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, you mentioned Jameis Winston there in that bit, which I caught the very end of that game, and we'll lead in with this. This is the Jameis quote of all time, in him saying, I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from these pick sixes. Like, that's not me. That's the all-timer there. But, the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, like, I don't know, man. The hit, I mean, people are debating, like, whether he slid too late or if he, slid the right way and everything. But, I mean, Azeez Al-Shire, you got to do better because, I don't even know if that's a throwback to, previous years in the NFL. I mean, maybe, but, I feel like all around people were calling that a cheap shot. And, he was sliding, and I think he had at least, 5 yards between them, which, I can't tell, but I looked like he could have, tried to avoid the hit, but, he went right there and looked like he launched into Trevor and with the elbow and the forearm and everything. And, it sucks because Trevor Lawrence just came back from injury there with the shoulder. And now, he might be shut down for the season at this point because you can't risk further injury to the franchise quarterback there. And, is beginning to have reminiscence of, Andrew Luck and how his career turned out and how he was injured quite often in the NFL with the Colts. So it's disrespectful, I think, and to play like that. And then, afterwards, the Jaguars, they got into a scrum there with him, and then he got off, he got ejected and, walked off the field and then tried to start another fight there with more players, and, Brandon Sheriff going there trying to remind him who won the election. So, that's what that was, the player there fighting trying to fight back, and that's not what you want to see in this league with that hit and everything. So the part that gets me is the response afterwards from the coach, because he's like, oh, this doesn't represent him, that's not who he is as a person. I mean, buddy, you got like 4 other clips of him where he choked out Tom Brady in a play when he was on the 49ers back in 2022. And then this year alone, he had 3 other instances where he punched out a running back on the Bears on the sideline. And then he tackled Caleb Williams, out of bounds there. And then previous week, he tackled a player on the Titans out of bounds. So, I mean, there's multiple instances where, he was playing outside of the rules, I think, and doing stuff that's maybe considered unethical in this day and age. But now the debate is, okay, like, do quarterbacks slide? And I don't know the answer to that. So I don't know what you're supposed to do. Like in that situation, because we've seen instances before where, players, maybe they get lit up in the knees or something, or they get lit up in the, other places, and, Patrick Mahomes doing this fake slide crap and stuff, and, fake out of bounds stuff. Like, I don't know what that is either, but, Trevor, I think he mostly did what he was supposed to do, and, just got knocked out there. So, now Aziz Al-Shire being suspended for 3 games, which I think is the right amount. And, going forward, we'll see. I mean, they are on a bye week anyway, so it's basically he's got an extra 3 weeks off after the bye week. So we'll see. We'll see what he's able to do, because I think I puts him back on the last game of the season. So going there and going forward. So we'll see how he plays going forward. But I mean, the league today, in the last sentence, they said your play and how you carry yourself is a danger to yourself and the rest of the league, and you need to improve, kind of paraphrasing there. But yeah, that's not good. But then the other thing that gets me is the response after the fight, with the Jaguars try to start playing a little bit dirty, or like start doing maybe a little extra here and there, and maybe a couple of hard hits. And no, I mean, they let that game go to 23-6 well into the 4th quarter, and then they mounted a little of a comeback, and then they had an opportunity there to stop them on 3rd and 5 with the 2-minute warning, and they weren't able to do that, and going out there and losing that game, once again. So yeah, I mean, it's par for the course for the culture of the Jaguars, because afterwards they had some players talking about the money with the fines, like, oh, like, I don't want to do too much because then I might get fined by the NFL. And like, hey, you got Shad Khan's like the richest owner, or one of the richest owner in the leagues. Come on, man, like, do something and whatnot. So you got that. And then today, I think, or yesterday, D'Amico Ryans like went further. I mean, yeah, he's going to defend his guy, but then he also said Jacksonville overreacted to what happened there. I'm like, you played linebacker in the league, years ago, and if somebody knocked out Matt Schaub, which I think Matt Schaub got knocked out a couple of times in his career, I mean, you probably would have reacted the same way. So I don't really understand what where was the overreaction on Jacksonville's part in that moment. So there's a lot of things I don't like on both ends of that. And shout out to the fans for going there and throwing stuff at him. I mean, just like the guy in the Seahawks that tried to fight fans when he got ejected back in 2017. So just reminding that guy that this is Duval, come here and play like that. So yeah, that's it sucks, because now Trevor maybe shut down for the season, and certainly that's definitely a significant hit and everything, and that's something he doesn't need to have. And then you question whether should he even been playing, because he was considering surgery and decided to come out and play. So I don't know, maybe go ahead and take the surgery and go ahead and take the rest of the season off. There's 5 games. They've been eliminated now with that Browns loss. So do what you need to do to get healthy. So yeah, that's it sucks. And I mean, I feel offended by it. I think that's what I think. Honestly, it's offending to me by the reaction from it and what happened. So the Jaguars not doing enough, and then D'Amico Ryan's seemingly the terrible response there. And I think the Texans GM there also tried to invoke other players, like when what happened in their instances of personal foul. And then on top of that, the Jaguars, it was a net loss for them because, okay, you have the slide, the hit, and that's supposed to be an unnecessary roughness, 15-yard penalty, and everything. And then they lost the cornerback because he got in the fight, and it was offsetting. So it's like, what do you do? Like that shouldn't be offsetting penalties. Maybe offsetting for the fight itself. Like, okay, that's a separate flag from the flag that caused it, but definitely like that's not offsetting because like if Azeez Al-Shire doesn't knock out Trevor Lawrence or doesn't launch into him, then the fight doesn't happen. So how does that like offset the reaction? So or has the reaction offset that? So I think the NFL definitely needs to take a look at reviewing the offsetting penalties there. So that's it's a very unfortunate situation. I mean, I didn't even really watch the game because I was putting up Christmas lights and stuff, but I was listening to it, and I didn't really. After that, I was like, it's whatever. Like, there's no point in really paying attention. I made to catch the end of it, but like, I didn't really have anything invested into it at that point. So it's disappointing to see, and hate to see it happen to Trevor. And I mean, at least in that moment, the people that fought for him, Evan Ingram, Brandon Sheriff, Andrew Ringard, Jerry and Jones, Anton Harrison, at least those guys gave a crap and were able to, take a few shots and stuff like that. Brian Thomas as well. So, but maybe other players like Walker Little, who they just signed to a contract extension this morning, didn't look like in the moment that they were ready to, go up and, slap box for a few minutes there and, go and get scrappy. But, that it is what it is. So, yeah, it's just disappointing to see.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, you don't want to lose your quarterback. And, somebody who watched his favorite quarterback get his career ended on a crazy, brutal hit. And you consider, like, the Andrew Luck point you brought up for Trevor Lawrence as a lot of validity. Now he's the GM for the Stanford football team. So Andrew Luck has all of his marbles and has started a family with his wife and all these other things, and now he's the GM of the Stanford football team. So shows when you're really intelligent, even if you're a great quarterback, there might be other options. And in this day and age of $50, $60 million quarterbacks, taking them kind of hits, it's not what the NFL wants. It's hard to play defense in the NFL, but I don't think it's that hard to have common sense. But I guess that is a thing. But, I mean, you're talking about heart and defending your guy. I think the opposite of that is what the 49ers have shown the last 2 weeks, especially on defense. You have basically none of them either know how to tackle. They act like they haven't played tackle football in their life because they've been averse to tackling. They were averse to tackling Josh Jacobs against Green Bay. They were averse to tackling Josh Allen on Sunday. They were averse to tackling James Cook. And I think he's still running. There's like 18 feet of snow or whatever the hell is in Buffalo. He could have ran all the way out into the stadium, ran around the stadium, done 10 laps. Nobody would have hit him. That was a joke. Absolutely pathetic. Brock did not have an amazing game, and the notion, Grant Cohn came out and said he's not a franchise quarterback, this and the other thing. He always plays bad in bad weather, all these things, amongst other accusations and things, saying they should blow the whole thing up, they should get rid of Shanahan, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, I am very outspoken about my dislike of Kyle Shanahan's play calling. I will say it almost every week. I say it about Kyle Shanahan. I have said it about him in big spots since he has a fundamental problem with that in big spots. But my problem with Kyle Shanahan is here you need these two games, the games that they had against Green Bay and Buffalo. I know Buffalo is better than the 49ers. That's fine. I can deal with that. Green Bay isn't that great. Their record may say one thing. They're not as good as that record. They got smoked by Minnesota, and it makes more sense as we go along. They got smoked by Kermit the Frog, and they don't smoke anybody. So it's almost, it's like, is the question of losing a locker room? I don't even think it's that. I think he doesn't, whatever his message is this year, is falling on deaf ears, for one. Two, this is yet another example, one of the years that they've just, every person known to man, their mother, their father, their significant other, their kids, their grandkids, the kids they haven't had yet, they all get hurt. Which seems to be a 49er epidemic. It seems like every couple of years, like, I don't know, the first few years of the regime, everyone would get hurt. Now this year it's happened again. But you have the added part where there's expectations and people just have not played. They played like shit, or they've just had no heart. I can't blame Mooney Ward for sucking when he lost his baby daughter. I can't blame Trent Williams for not being 100% when he just lost his son. That you can't say anything to. You can't quantify the loss of a child. But if you don't have if something like that, an adverse event in life, and you're going out there and you're cashing a check from the 49ers and you don't even bother to tackle, or you don't bother to play hard, you can't run routes, they look like the fucking Giants and the Jets. It's a joke. They were plays away from winning the Super Bowl, being in a position to beat Kermit the Frog in February. And now they're getting run like they're frickin' Howard playing against Alabama. What kind of fucking bullshit is this? Granted, I knew they were going to lose. I went into the last 2 weeks thinking they were going to... I thought they had a decent... the last 2 weeks I wasn't very optimistic. I thought they had a chance against Green Bay. They didn't show up. I knew based on that performance, there was no chance in hell they were going to beat Buffalo. You add the fact that there was like 2 feet of snow, there was basically, outside of them getting help from like Mick Foley and Terry Funk with like flaming tables, Japanese superstars going and power bombing people, they weren't beating the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen had an MVP night, and their defense throttled the run game, the unimaginative run game that eventually saw Christian McCaffrey have a PCL, sprain or strain based on his dad, Ed McCaffrey, after he went on Up and Adams. So now we're getting the other side of Christian McCaffrey because Kyle Shanahan was so desperate to get him back after I don't know how many months that he ran him into the ground in 3 games. That's just dumb. Because, Jordan Mason, he came out there and he was running 5-6 yards a clip. Oh, no, but we'll put him back on the bench and then we'll go and throw passes to people that can't catch a ball. Like three downs in a row. You threw to frickin' George Kittle, what? You targeted him, 3 times? It's George fucking Kittle. It's the snow in Buffalo. Nobody wants to hit anybody they didn't want to hit anybody, but they could, and they did. It's a George Kittle game. He literally lives for this crap. You throw to him, he gets 1 catch? Really? Come on, man. I'm not a freaking football genius like everyone says Kyle Shanahan is. But for fuck's sake, George Kittle's the best wide receiver they have right now. By far. Deebo Samuel sucks. He's probably going to catch on somewhere and he'll have a good year and then he'll pull a hamstring or whatever the fuck he'll do. So let him do that. Do that in goddamn Atlanta or wherever the hell he wants to go. Go to the Jets. I don't give a shit. He's toast. And then he was a bitch and he has to show up and actually play hard next year. They're not even, you bring Ricky Pearsall in as a first-round draft pick. Granted, he got shot in the summer. His recovery and coming back is huge. You're not even including him. in the game plan. What's the point of drafting him number one and you're not even using him, really? The guy's a dynamic playmaker, right? You don't use him, you're not using him on returns, kick returns or punt returns, which is something he was really good at. You're not using him in the offense on third downs. You're not using him on first and second down to at least spread the field or give themselves a different look. What is the point of having him then? You have other guys, you have veteran players that are wasting spots on the starting lineup when you have probably their best draft class that they've had in this whole regime. If they're going to suck, let them suck on the field, let them get their reps. Because the season's done. I don't care what they say. They're not going to the playoffs. Even if they do go to the playoffs, they're getting one and done. Because they haven't beat any of the teams in the division. They're not beating LA. Seattle's tough. It makes me nauseous to say that, but they are. The Cardinals, they never beat the Cardinals anyways. So it's over. And then on top of it, they have to play. I mean, you're coming off. Caleb Williams had a great game on Thursday. You have extra time, and they get to go, even though they have to go to Santa Clara, it's an advantageous situation for them, for Chicago. They have to play Miami. And Miami is a hit or miss, whatever, but, I would venture to say they could go run all up and down the field, and that's before you include their passing game. Now, of course, if it's like Skylar Thompson, then yeah, sure. They might be able to win that game, but if Tua's out there, they're not winning. I don't know. I really am. I'm really frustrated. I'm angry at what the Niners have put out there the last couple of weeks. It's an embarrassment when you're a professional and you get paid to play a game and you don't show up. That's unacceptable. And there's a lot of guys on that team that have not shown up for most of this season. I could probably count on one hand, maybe going on to a second hand, the number of players that have shown up all year. GK is one of them, and I'd have to sit here and really think of the guys that have shown up every week that have actually played. There are guys that have had to be down with injuries, so you could probably include them. I think Juwan Jennings has played great, given the circumstances. Dominic Pooney, great job by them to actually get an offensive lineman that can actually play. In terms of the defense, I think Demo Lenore, but he was hurt, so that made it hard for them on Sunday. After Demo Lenore, Warner, when he isn't missing tackles and playing with multiple injuries like an idiot, is a great player, but he's not that guy right now, and he's a liability on defense. I really don't. That's basically it. You're talking about like 3-4 guys on a 53-man roster. Come on, and they're a team that's going to finish 500, but they've played like a team that should be drafting in the top 5 in the draft. With you and I should be talking about who we're looking at the top 5 at the top of the draft. I know you didn't want to be there. You didn't think that was going to be the case. And I wasn't thinking that they were going to be flirting with a top half draft pick in 2025, but it's the league. The problem now is the window closed? And that's the real concern, knowing that Brock, they have to pay him. And I don't really give a shit what Grant Cohn says because he's a troll. He's just a new age Skip Bayless. His dad was a troll, so is he. So he's a Nepo baby on top of it. So he's pathetic. He's a great combination. He's like Lance Stroll and fucking Skip Bayless put into one. So we'll see who comes back, but season's over. Just want to prevent massive injuries to like big players at this point. It's possible that might be the end for Trent Williams after this year. Amongst other things. So there's going to be a lot of changes. A lot of changes have to be made on this roster. There needs to be a rejuvenation and moving on from some dead weight for sure. Got the standings. I should go back to that and go do playoff picture. Instead, as it is right now. in the AFC, of course, Kermit the Frog. They haven't updated it, I guess, because it still shows the Week 13 matchup. So I mean, Chiefs and the Bills. Of course, the Bills have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs. They both won. Steelers won. Texans also won. Chargers. So all the first 5 teams all won. Ravens lost. Broncos won. So now they actually are, but they're already in the playoffs anyways right now as it stands. Indianapolis was able to win. Dolphins lost. Bengals lost. Browns lost. So Browns are probably done. Really, it's really the Colts and the Dolphins that are left on the AFC side. The Raiders, Jags, and Patriots have been eliminated from the playoffs. The Giants have been eliminated from the playoffs as well. In terms of the NFC, Lions are first. Eagles are in the 2 spot. Seahawks lead the NFC West as of last week. I'm not sure what the Falcons, they lost. The top 3 teams won. Vikings won to stay in contact with the Lions. Packers won. Commanders won. So all that stays status quo. Buccaneers come back to win. Cardinals lose in a tough, close one. Rams win. Niners lose. Cowboys win. Saints lose. So, I mean, Panthers are probably eliminated. There's the playoff postseason probabilities teams. Yeah, so right now, the playoffs. So 59% number 1 seed for Chiefs, 37% for the Bills. Bonix looks like Paperboy. Jesus. Lions, 64% chance of number 1 seed, 23% for the Eagles, and actually the Vikings have an 11% chance. Which teams are on a playoff bubble? There's only really 2 in the AFC. In the NFC, they show 4, but I don't count the Niners in that. I mean, the big game of the week is the Thursday night game, Detroit hosting Green Bay. After that, playoff implications in the Minnesota-Atlanta game, 1 o'clock. Pittsburgh playing Cleveland, I said. Philly playing Carolina. Tampa Bay playing the Raiders. Seattle and Arizona, battle of the NFC West. The Rams hosting the Bills. The Niners hosting the Bears. Sunday Night Football is Kermit the Frog versus the Chargers, so that Jim Harbaugh company. And then Justin Herbert and them. Cowgirls hosting Cincinnati on Monday night as well. So at least Joe Burrow will put some numbers up. Okay, so let's move on to the roundup here in Formula 2 this past weekend. The results at Qatar saw Ollie Bierman win the sprint race and Paul Aaron win the feature. So in the sprint race results, Ollie Bierman over Jack Crawford, Richard Vachur, Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto, Zane Maloney, Paul Aaron, Dirksen, Victor Martins, and Bogdanovic, rounding out the top 10. Feature race, Aaron gets a win over Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto, Goff, Bogdanovic, Mansell, Cordial, Bennett, Maloney, Miata, round out your top 10. Bortoleto has a half a point lead on Isaac Hadjar going into the finale. So huge implications for that. It's not like either of them are going to get a ride, but as it stands, I mean, maybe Isaac Hadjar gets in to the Toro Rosso A, whatever, or B. And Paul Aaron solidly in third. Zane Maloney, 16 points out of Jack Crawford for fourth. Marin 23 points ahead of Maloney, and then 25 points behind Hadjar. So he's in his own spot. Andrea Kimi Antonelli is in 6th. Franco Colapinto, of course, is out, so he doesn't count into that. Martins, Finishore, and Dennis Hauger rounding out the top 10. Kushmini just outside that top 10 there. Going into Yas Marina. Move that. F1 Academy. They're gonna around 6 race 2. So at Qatar, the race results, they only got one of the races in. Dorian Pan gets the win over Abby Pulling, who ends up locking up the championship. Woog 3rd, Hamna Al-Kabasi, Palmovsky, Leah Block gets a 6th place finish. Chloe Chambers 11th. Bianca Bustamante finishing 16th. I mentioned Abby Pulling getting the championship. Dorian Pan's going to finish 2nd. Woog going to likely finish 3rd. Nerea Marti, Chloe Chambers, Hamna Al-Kabasi, all separated by 6 points. Bianca Bustamante, 13 points out of Leah Block, there for 7th. Looking for a strong finish. It's been a solid couple of rounds, Singapore and Qatar for Leah Block. After a slow start to this season, of course, being a novice in open wheel racing, to be able to make the progress that she's made is really big. Go and move to Formula E, the season opener in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, the start 24-25 campaign, and who's set the pace on 20. Trying to go through that. Read the 6 different drivers set the pace. Welcoming a Gen 3 Evo era of cars. Driver Max Gunther joins DS Penske to be teammates with John Eric Verne. Stoffel Van Dorn goes to. So basically, they swapped rides. Royal team and newcomer Jake Hughes transitioned from McLaren, opted for stability. Envision and tag Porsche. Defending world champions Pascal Wehrlein, Eduardo Matarnik to British Jaguar, TCS Tour, securing team's world championship. Mitch Evans, Nick Cassidy, Oliver Rowland, Norman Nato, Jake Dennis, Nico Muller for Andretti. McLaren has Taylor Barnard partnering Sam Bird. Lola Yamaha Apt will have Luca De Grassi, Zane Maloney. Mahindra Racing will have Nick DeVries and Eduardo Mortara. Nico Muller moving to Porsche, who also began Norman Nato returns to Nissan. New faces, Zane Maloney. Taylor Barnard. And then Dick Tantrum and David Beckman for the Kiro Racing Cupra effort for this year. And then, is that actually their... that is an interesting paint scheme. So we will see who is able to go out and do the work necessary to get the win this coming weekend in Sao Paulo. We have the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix this coming weekend to end the season. Trying to see who. So I picked first. So you get to pick first, Josh. Who is your podium, your winner, and who will win the Constructors' Championship, McLaren or Ferrari at race's end?
Man, this is actually kind of tough because, with the whole Constructors' Championship deal, it makes you think that, one of these teams is going to pull something out here. But, I'm going to say Verstappen ends up winning the race still. But I will say that Piastri finishes 2nd, and then Charles Leclerc finishes in 3rd. So put both of them on the podium there. And I'm going to say McLaren takes home the Constructors' Championship.
Constructors' Championship, if McLaren were to win it, I believe would be the first one since 1999. Because in 2007 they got disqualified due to Stepney Gate. So they had won the Constructors' Championship. They were disqualified from the Constructors' Championship. So that would be the first time since 99 that was Mika Hakkinen on the back-to-back World Championships. So it's been a very long time, been 25 years. So we'll see if McLaren's able to do it. I'll go a little different here. I'll go and say Charles Leclerc gets the win, and I'll go with Lando Norris in second. Then I'll have Carlos Sainz in third, which will allow Ferrari to overtake McLaren for the constructors, and multiple wins, of course, for Charles Leclerc, if that does come off. And so Ferrari gets the constructors with Lewis Hamilton then coming in to join that effort. So we'll go Leclerc to win with Norris second and Sainz third. Ferrari wins constructors. All right, so we will move on to your sim segment, Josh. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming.
Yeah, to start off, for the sim segment, of course, the terms of news on iRacing, we have the Acura NSX GT3 being added to the game, which they had it from 2017 there, and going on and all that, but now they've updated it to the latest GT3 from 2022, which is interesting because Acura is no longer producing the GT3 anymore, or the NSX. They discontinued it, but it's a good addition to the game. They're trying to look up in the terms of news, other stuff that might have happened, just to follow up on that. The Acura NSX GT3 Evo 22 2025 Season 1 update. And it's one of the cars debuted in 2017 and won dozens of races in the GTD Championship. The Acura NSX GT3 Evo made its debut in 2022 and won the Petit Le Mans for Gradient Racing and other stuff. So it's it's a good car, and glad to have it. So I'll probably have to pick it up, being Acura guy myself. So we'll have to do that, and that's an option for next year as well. I guess the Season 1 updates coming into fruition here this week in iRacing. Special Week 13 and Week 14 official series, Winter iRacing Series still going on. Sim Magic F4 Regional Tour, Racing Prodigy, Week 13 at Charlotte Roval, Ringmaster, Draftmaster combinations, the Legacy Chevy Impala at iRacing Superspeedway, Pro Mazda at Nürburgring, their Rainmaster at Lime Rock Park, iRacing Esports, World of Outlaws at Lincoln Speedway, and then the IMSA Global Championship, Esports Global Championship at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 2 hours and 40 minutes there. So, see what else do we got here. Upcoming events. IndyCar at iRacing Superspeedway on Week 13, which I think counts for points. Yeah, so got that. NASCAR at Auto Club Speedway on the Cup Series, so that should be fun there. The what else? The Class B fixed at Charlotte, so that should be fun too. For Xfinity car at Charlotte, NASCAR Legends at Dover for some weird reason. Got that there. BMW Power Cup at Lime Rock Park as well, and a bunch of other. The Production Car Challenge at Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, so multi-class racing, Class D, for 25 minutes there. So, so I think next week is because of the extra week or something, they delaying the normal silly Week 13 and making it a Week 14, and the iRacing world. So events this week count for points and all that. So get an extra week of points racing on that side before going to the silly stuff and getting all the updates out. So yeah, be looking to get on that probably. Yeah, when the new Acura drops, getting to pick up that and race the NSX there on the sim. So did race a little bit before going on Thanksgiving. Going up for Thanksgiving. I ran the Mazda MX-5 Cup at Summit Point and actually picked up a win there. So pretty good there. And then the other night ran at Auto Club in the Xfinity car, started 17th and finished in 8th, so pretty good there as well, and was able to hold down in pretty good average lap times as other people I think were burning up their stuff, so I was pretty good there. So try to hit up some more events this week and try to maybe find another win or two here left in the year 2024. So we'll see how that goes there. Maybe we'll try to stream if we have an opportunity to, so we'll see. Which streams, of course, when I do stream at Twitch TV/UCLR2 and go on there and follow the streams, of course, on there and see all the stuff on there. And then at JB Upfine on Twitter and go on there and see what we have to say about the racing and about the Jaguars and all that stuff on my Twitter page. Go in there and follow. And of course, our YouTube page at Grocery Podcast. Go in there and follow our content and watch our stuff on there and subscribe to our page and give us a like or a comment and interact. So yeah, that's it this week. Of course, glad to be back, and only one more major race left here in the 2024 season. So other than that, it's been a fun year of racing.
Yeah, I don't want to forget the snowball. Snowball Derby. So that's I'm not sure that's happening this weekend or next weekend. I
think it's this weekend.
Oh, so you know what? Yeah. Before we move on, would be remiss if I don't mention Snowball Derby. You have, Ty Majeski, the Truck Series champion, winning the Billy Bigley Memorial event last week. So he's obviously a person that we have to look at for this race. Only a few weeks after, and then some snowball. We have more than 2 Snowball Derby victories. Are joining Reach Beagle. Bubba Pollard trying to win his first. Stephen Nasse. So those are 2. I mean, yeah, you got some interesting. There's some names like Chandler Smith will be in this race. Luke Fenhouse, or at least trying to make the race. Carson Quapple, Sammy Smith, Derek Kraus, Caden Honeycutt, Gio Ruggiero, Billy Van Meter, Darren Cruz, Bubba Pollard, Dawson Sutton, Cole Butcher, Noah Gagson, Kyle Steckley, Caden Quapple, Trayton Lapsovich, Jake Garcia, Lethal Weapon, Connor Jones, Jake Finch, Stephen Nasse, Boris Yurkovic, Johnny Sauter, William Sawalich, Trayton Lapsovich. So then there's Caden Lapsovich, Ty Majeski, David Gilliland, Preston Peltier, Ed Van Meter, amongst a solid lineup of drivers. Trayton Lapsovich came off of the South Carolina 400. So there's that. For the Snowflake 100, which is for Pro Late models. Looking through, I think Luke Baldwin, so that's Tommy Baldwin's son. That'll be someone, Chase Pinsino. I don't know if I assume it's Alec Pinsino's grandson. Hudson Bulger, Derek Thorne, Bubba Pollard's racing that one as well. I got Spencer Davis, Augie Grill. There's Connor Jones again. Caden Honeycutt, Mamba Smith. Wow, okay. Jet Nolan, Stephen Nasse, Casey Roderick, Yeah, so there's probably other names that I don't know offhand. So, Ty Majeski, 2-time winner, Derek Thorne, Chandler Smith, Gagson, all recent winners that are in this field. Kyle Busch isn't, along with the likes of Christian Eckes, Clyde, John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Jones, Joanna Long. Wow, I forget that Joanna Long won this race. Augie Grill, 2-time winner of this race. Clay Rogers, Stephen Wallace. Wow, he won this race. Christ almighty. Rich Bickle, 98 and 99. Bobby Gill. Bickle won it 3 out of 4 years. Jeff Purvis, Tammy Joe Kirk, or Bobby Gill, and Bobby won. Rich Bickle won it 5 times. Okay. That's a pedophile there before Rich Bickle. Or before that was Ted Musgrave, Butch Miller, Gary Ballou, Jody Ridley, Butch Lindley, Mickey Gibbs, Freddie Fryer. Yeah, those are some names. We'll definitely talk about that next week in the episode 249 of the Gripster podcast. You can find us at Gripster Pod on X. You can find me on X at PGM. I think it's PGM GSP, but PG Matthew 28 on X, PGM GSP 28 on Blue Sky, and on Instagram you can find me at PGM GSP 28 there on Instagram, and you can find the podcast at philipgmatthew.com. Of course, on my personal YouTube page, you get the sound, audio part, but of course, on the Gripster podcast page, you can get the full video clip and audio combination for every episode. And Josh curates that. So for Josh, I'm Phil. We'll see you next time for episode 249 of the Gripster podcast. And just before we get to the Christmas break, we're going to get to 250. So big numbers coming up here. So 249 next week, going over the end of Formula One, Snowball Derby, and whatever's left of football, at least for the real football, and fantasy for that matter. So we'll see what goes on with that, and we'll be back to talk about it all next week on the GSP. So thanks for listening and subscribing, and goodbye.